to $20, pay it down. I haven't fully decided because with the connected accounts on Stripe, it, if you get disputed, so you go out and you sell a client and, the client thought they were getting a cheaper price than they were, or they make more calls than they thought they did and they dispute the charge, it sucks for everybody involved. And so we're thinking about either doing invoice for that, or we're just thinking about like having some restrictions in there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Some actions, like the ones that are in there are beefed up a little bit. So like send email, reschedule or whatever, self-schedule and all that are cleaned up. Yeah, self-schedule is cleaned up. And
it's out or it's modified?
It's cleaned up, so it's almost completely redone. And so it'll be self-schedule will be whatever channel it was in last. And so if it's call, it self-schedules, it will call again. If it's text, self-schedules, it will text again.
Okay.
So whatever the last channel was, I think we made the decision on that.
Yeah.
And then things like extractions and adding tags and stuff like that are a little bit more robust and beefy. So they should be, good and, well integrated to, you just say what you need in there. And then I'm trying to think what else on that side.
I'll tell you what, that'd be awesome, because I don't know if my bot has started to be inconsistent with my update contact custom tool, or if GHL is starting to fail, if it's not getting the email ID it's expecting. Before it was allowing, hey, if there's no email ID, still update everything else. Now it's just failing everything. And I don't know if it's a new value is being pushed or GHL's breaking. So I had to go in and make this nested if statement. So do they have first name? Update first name. If not, update last name. Do they have a last name? It's and you can't copy it from one account to another, because you have to create a new webhook, and so it clears all those values. So then you have to go in and build, and it's just such a pain. And I'm like, I hope extractions are on the bench right now.
Yeah, that one was huge, and because of the same reason. Then also, it's like custom tools are so good for a lot of reasons, but it's also
real quick. Jerry, Jason, and Joel are in the waiting room, and they're not getting let in.
There we go. I forgot about that. Yep.
Probably there we go. All right, I'm listening, Jordan, I promise.
Okay. But yeah, no, that was like the biggest thing has been like linking the like specific arguments. Like that's the big thing. So it's like, we're just going to do that for you, and it should make everything a ton easier. And then transfer, some people saw I need to write this down while it's fresh in my brain before I talk. Some things on like transfers to like Twilio or other telephoning numbers. Like one I saw this morning was like, it was a transfer to a third party telephony, but it was like, it had like a ringing thing before it would pick up. So it wasn't like a regular phone ring. It was like ring, 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 accept into another ring, and then accept the phone call. And I think that trips out like the Twilio response back from the like actual transfer call. And it's like, oh, that wasn't transferred.
Okay.
And so trying to look at that. But the other thing is warm transfer so there'll be an option for a hard transfer, which is like how it is today, or a warm transfer, which is like the assistant will call you and say, hey, I have Jason on the phone here. Jason said XYZ. I know you wanted to talk to him, so I'm going to let you guys have at it.
That's super cool.
Yep, that one will be super fun. And let's see what else. All the fun stuff like copy bot by ID is back, which allowed marketplace too, so you can upload them to a general marketplace to either sell or just give away, go get some, whatever you want. Custom tools, it's the parameters. The reason I made that video yesterday was like I would have a ton of so I'm going back through support tickets personally, so I'm like going through all of them myself right now. And so most of the stuff in there was like, especially relating to custom tools, was like literally the parameters. And so I made that video yesterday, but also on this one that I'm just like, we're going to, how like in high level, when you do a custom value and you just kind of put in like a raw name for what you want, and then high level just makes the custom value for you. We're going to do something like that just to make it a tad bit easier. And then, nice. Yeah, it'd be really nice. And then the orb is going to be a big thing because the voice infrastructure I just got off a call for that. Literally why I was late for this one is going to be significantly beefed up, where, web calling should have tool calls in a very accurate way. And then inbound and outbound calling should be pretty much theoretically bulletproof because concurrency at this point is beefed up on our like system wide side. And so we'll be able to divvy concurrency as a service. And so even for selling to, your clients and everything, you can sell them concurrency. So it's like for, this much a month, you can get 5 calls concurrent, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so we'll have a ton of little stuff like that.
I got a couple questions that might be able to speed things. So call failure handling right now for anyone on the call, I'm using IVR to say if it's a missed call or a failed call, which GHL is kind of goofy with their IVR. They don't allow you to select the status of failed. You have to select the status of other. And anyways, so I've been using that to go through a looping sequence with a call counter. So if I get a missed call or a failed call, it'll call back up to 3 times before erroring out and failing. But if you're getting a busy call signal, there's nothing you can do. It just because on the user side, they get a busy received a busy signal on their end, and the call basically stops no matter what you have. So I was wondering if we had call failure handling in the pipeline. And for everyone that joined late, he mentioned extractions are here and they are on deck for 2.1, which I know a couple of us were really excited about. And then as far as extractions from post call webhooks, so it for everyone else, you can say, hey, send this post call webhook to GHL. Then GHL, you can use ChatGPT to say, hey, read through this transcript to extract the name. And that comes out as chatgpt.1.response. But if you do that for more than one variable at a time, it's taking that whole chunk of text and it won't work because you're going to have this big chunk of text, first name Jakin, last name Harper, versus first name equaling context response 1. Anyways, I was wondering if you had an idea or a build ship in plan or an internal extraction tool using that, or is that the extraction tool you're talking about?
No, extractions will be like actual like sent to an endpoint extractions, but there will be, and I haven't decided if I'm doing this account wide or by assistant, but there will be like a call analysis thing where it's like, what information would you like for us to extract throughout this call and send in the post call webhook? It could be first name, it could be last name, it can be address if it comes up, and then we'll send that in the post call webhook if it wasn't already filled in a custom value. So it'd be like an analysis metric type thing on the post call webhook. But I haven't decided if that's going to be an account wide thing or if that's going to be an assistant thing. I'm thinking account wide because that may like just standardize, especially like webhooks. Even if it's coming from multiple assistants, just pick the ones you need out of that one, and then work from there. That's what I'm thinking. Don't know yet though, but yeah, that'll be in there.
That's exciting.
It is exciting.
And then I don't know what build plan you had today. I was hoping maybe you could incorporate branching inside of the logic of the prompt.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, I've had people come in and they, like, I don't have in my prompting at all, like, hey, I submitted a quote online. I was calling to get details about it. I can branch. I can build basically an FAQ inside of the prompting. But for everyone, the knowledge base will be voice accessible in 2.1.
Mm-hmm.
It's not now, however. So I've been using an inside the prompt FAQ for questions, but being able to handle objections that aren't stated, I found it's like when you have a new question, you have to go in and review it as a human, and then come back and say, all right, how do we respond to this objection in the future? Which makes sense. Like we're engineering here. We're engineering a response. We're trainers. We're phone answering trainers. Like we're training the person that's answering the phone. But to be able to say I don't know, I realize is kind of hard to get the bot to admit.
Mm-hmm. If you wanted to say I don't know, so I do this in a lot of mine. There is like I don't think we put it in the stock like response things, but I know we've done it on some support stuff. Is like literally telling the AI it is okay to not know and it's okay to not let them know works like fabulously. So if I don't remember verbatim what I say, it's usually like If there's information that you don't know, like for certain, or that's not in your domain knowledge, you're fully welcome to say you don't know, and then that you'll review it later. And it tends to work out quite well. But what I would do on stuff like that, and what I've done with like support widgets and things like that I've tested throughout this fun support journey, is I've given, especially on the chat side, I haven't necessarily tested it with voice. On the chat side, I give it the ability to store its own like answers that it's not fully aware of. And so in those situations where it doesn't have a great answer, I created a tool that was like document query. You can call it just for human review or whatever. And so if I said, if you come across something that you're not like certain of the answer, or something that you can't make sense of the answer, let them know I don't know, and then document the query to be reviewed by a human later. And that worked out pretty well.
Smart.
Yep. Yep. Little stuff like that. So,
hey, Jordan, on that knowledge base document that you dropped, when we actually use the tools for creating a knowledge base, like we check text or we check FAQ or whatever, does it automatically put it into that JSON context, or do we need to do that before we add it?
For which one?
So you had created that document that showed you how to, for the tools and stuff like that, to copy it into JSON code, and then also on the knowledge base, like customer objections and formatting for uploading. So are we to transfer what we have in written document to the JSON format before we upload it to the knowledge base, or by putting that document into the knowledge base, it automatically transfers it to the JSON code?
On this one, so that was from an older infrastructure back when we were taking advantage of OpenAI's assistance. It's a terrible infrastructure, which is why we got rid of it. But on knowledge for right now, so knowledge is like a huge factor in this 2.1. That's why we're taking a lot of time for things like voice knowledge and like agnostic knowledge. So like everything from like literally raw text to you can slap in a YouTube link and we will get the YouTube video and transcribe it. But for right now, the best way, so on knowledge, and let me know if I go off on track here. The best way right now on knowledge is FAQ, because it's like cause and effect. So it can like correlate question, answer, objection, rebuttal. It can correlate these two things, because how knowledge works is, I've seen it used a million ways, but theoretically how knowledge works is, what it does is it takes something that somebody says and then looks for what would be a correlated answer or a correlated piece of information that goes with whatever the person said at the time. So if I say, how much is your pricing? In the knowledge space of RAG, I'm looking for something correlating to pricing. And so the best way to structure any knowledge base for a super reliable output is going to be like cause and effect, like question, answer, rebuttal, objection, something like that, so that when a query comes in or when somebody responds, it's able to go parse through and say, I've seen something like this before. I'm going to use this as context to generate something right now. That's how knowledge is accurately used, and that's how it kind of works with things like scraping and things like scraping and things like document upload, because it can say, how much is voice minutes, and it can go look at a site scrape and say on the site it said 0.7 or 7 cents a minute for voice. I know that correlates to what I was asking. But knowledge is definitely not a good place to put instruction or like key steps or like structured like calculation data. It's more like correlation for answers. Sorry, that was a little rant, but I thought I'd make that point.
But yeah, the document that you had just shared recently when you made that video, I think of the last couple of days. I think it was a recent video where you were dropping information on knowledge. It showed the format for uploading for each of the types, like product descriptions, customer reviews, those types of things. And the format for uploading, you put, to use the JSON style. So my thoughts were, I was going to take my currently created frequently asked questions and put that into ChatGPT and say, transfer this to this style and give it an example of the style, and then upload that to the knowledge base. But I just want to make sure that I'm hearing you correctly, I guess.
Yeah, that Not aware of the document. It sounds like something I had made a long time ago, but not recently. But the best way for something like that, like what I did on our sales one, was I went ahead and had the site scraped anyways, but I went to ChatGPT. I said, scrape the site, and then spit out 35 FAQs that could come up potentially in a sales conversation, and then I just copy and pasted those FAQs into the knowledge, and that's what that one runs off of right now.
And you did
So
it one
roll-
at a time for each question. So you did a question answer like through using the knowledge base tool for frequently asked questions.
Well, that little FAQ thing. Yep, you just add them in there, and then you can add as many as you want, and then you can upload that.
Okay.
Yep, this update has a lot of focus on knowledge, but for right now, like today at this moment, that's the best way.
Jordan, do you see Trinitas in the weight room?
I do now.
No, this isn't really a question here, but it is a little bit. When are you expecting 2.1 to be out?
I don't know. I expected it last week.
I think you just got kicked,
I'm not
Jason.
asking. I'm not asking. I'm just kind of like.
You're not allowed to talk anymore.
No.
All right,
Banned,
mute me.
instantly
Mute me.
banned. No, I expected it to come out last Friday, but what I've been doing is like I've been like keeping close tabs with people who like are doing a lot of volume on the platform, and especially in specific things. Like some people are high volume in voice, some people are really high volume in chat, some people are really high volume as resellers. And so I've been keeping my ear to them and sending them stuff over. It's like, how can we do this? Because again, the idea is I don't want to have to touch this after this update for the foreseeable future in a meaningful way. Like, sure, bug fixes, whatever, like this thing doesn't display, sure, whatever. But I really don't want to have to touch this, because I'll tell you, I'd rather do the stuff like I did yesterday. It's a crash course on custom tools, crash course on, multi-calendar booking, this, that, whatever. And then also resources to make things easier, like just building bots all day and then say, here's the ID, just copy it if you want it. That's what I'd rather be doing all day, because to me, that's probably more tangibly better in life. And so I've been spending a lot of time with these different people who are hitting high volumes in these certain things. Like, what do you see here? How can we make this better? And the high volume calling was, we have a call center tab now. So the call center tab is being able to analyze calls by output, be able to download all of them by campaign, being able to look at all these different metrics like a call center would, and be able to like see a tangible result at the end of it. So it's almost like managing like a true like analytics of a call center there. The other thing on chat was, especially on larger deployments, was like what is in there is great for people who want to go in there and do it. But for those who don't want to go in there and do it, even though it's pre-generated and everything for you, they're like, it would be so much easier XYZ. So we'll have an easy menu now. It's literally like you say, I want sales, and then we ask you what qualifying questions you want, and then that's it. That's your setup. Everything else is done for you. Now it's not super customizable, but makes it super easy.
Mm-hmm.
And then things like rebilling is like, we're paying for like 95% of the voice traffic that comes through out of pocket. And I'll tell you, it's not cheap. And so we're trying to find a real tangible way to make it make sense, to get it to the end user. Like the big thing was, it's like, just rebuild them. But yeah, that's fine. What if they dispute? Because you're connected to our stuff, you get disputed and we get disputed. That's not fun for anybody involved. And so we were thinking like an invoice type infrastructure, or at least like a pay down or a credit system like Facebook and Go High Level does. And so we're like the last day or two, we've been going through rebilling. And all that to say is a long answer is like, I would like to shoot for this weekend, but that just depends on if I get like more tangible feedback of like, I don't have to touch this again. If somebody comes to me with something really good and I'm like, yeah, that would make me not have to touch this for a little bit, it's going to get implemented. So I'm hoping this weekend is really kind of the tangible, like good stopping point, I hope.
So what was the benefit of doing the internal call center versus just assigning a user to an agent? So a GHL user or staff member to an agent, which there's already call reporting in there.
If you're doing like calling at scale, so whether you're like you are a tax relief company, or you are a call center, or you're an agency whose whole offer is AI calling, it's hard to go back to a client or hard to go back internally and say, we did this, it cost this much, and it resulted in this much, tangible, results, right? Now, it's not necessarily hard. I mean, you could tag a bunch of this stuff and you can make it happen, but for those who don't want to do it, like especially our direct to like call center stuff, they don't want to have to do that. And so being able to just kind of go in there, we'll be able to track things like by workflow ID and be able to track campaigns by workflows. And so now every time you run through a specific workflow, you'll now be able to see all metrics associated with that workflow specifically. And then things like saying like in plain language, right? Like there's stuff in there that's like sometimes you'll see error, but then it's like, what does that mean? Or you'll see, call ended, but it's like, well, how did it end? There will be more stuff to say like this call was answered, this call did book an appointment, and then at the end XYZ, and the call cost this much, and this is why it costed this much. And so when that invoice is sent out, the invoice will include every call ID that was on there, and so they can tangibly go back and look at the campaign and say, okay, this is really a good, like this bill is right. So it makes tracking things a lot easier.
Yeah, and you also, because you're standalone, you don't have to have GHL, which gives you a lot more flexibility as an agency. I was wondering, so I see a lot of the endpoints were removed from the documentation. Are they not supported at the moment, or is that just while you move over?
They are, but I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm like burnt out and overwhelmed right now. And so some of them needed some docs behind them. Like even the ones that had all the arguments behind them, they needed docs, like just to understand what's going on. And when I tell you, I'm like going, having some fun. I'm having some fun in life. I'm having some fun. So I'm like, let me just take these down. So it's like one less question as we go through support and as we go through this update and everything. So that way, once it's done, again, I can work on that stuff instead of having to like, patch things like that. But those are still there. The ones that were there is still accessible and everything. They're just not on there.
You just have to have them written down somewhere.
Yeah.
Screenshot everything. So did you, is 2.1 going to have bearer token sent via voice request?
For access token or like
the bearer access token, the auth token.
Yeah that's stored in metadata. Because the other thing was like is the volume. The other thing is like we're hitting rate limits on everything that we do, and a lot of that comes from us having to parse data at every point of where this thing is at. And so in metadata of calls now, we're like saving all of that stuff. And so on a function call, I'll have to check and make sure that metadata comes through, but that's where that'll be, is you'll be able to access like call.metadata.access token, which helps us internally, but it helps you if you ever do an endpoint that's meaningful. It's like, there's your access token.
That's sweet. That's going to be a lot more flexible, especially if it's treated the same way over chat and voice.
It is. Yep. The other thing that maybe I can get some feedback from everybody on here is that as I see like the use cases grow, and as I'm kind of redoing some data structuring on here, I think it makes a ton of sense. Like the reseller thing is really, really cool. But I think also just in like the idea of deploying in a real meaningful way, I was thinking that we may get rid of the like click to create on sub account. So you put your custom menu link in there. The custom menu link creates the account once it's clicked. I was thinking about getting rid of that in exchange for like you go in here and you click create account and it's like, okay, we'll log in with high level for the account that you want. It creates the account, it links everything, and that can go to an external agency if you want it to. It can be internal, but everything's kind of like finalized. And that makes also things like custom menu links a little bit more dynamic. I don't know. I've been thinking about some stuff like that, like an implementation aspect. And that also allows us, by the way, to give you a custom link where you can have somebody sign up to a specific thing, and then we can onboard them pretty easily too. So there's a ton of benefits, but it also gets rid of the easy click to create thing.
I mean, it sounds like a cool feature. It does sound like it would possibly take a little bit from the resellers, right? Because currently that's a function only resellers have.
Yeah.
And although it'd be kind of cool to add more features in, you're talking like 2.2, 2.3, or are you talking 2.1?
I don't know. I was thinking too, because I'm like, again, thinking ahead on some of this stuff. And I was even thinking like Yeah, again, we don't really charge for anything, and so I was even thinking on something like that may just be like a paid service. Like you can bring in, so if you most of the time the go high level agencies that need something like this that aren't necessarily resellers, right? They mostly just have a client that's outside of their go high level. They have like two of them. And so I was thinking if we just do it for 3 sub accounts, you can do outside sub accounts up to 3. That's fine, and then more. But it still allows for the multi workspace environment for reselling, which is like another big factor that is like frying my brain right now because we're going to have in the reselling aspect multi workspace environment to build them, which builds their clients and everything kind of triaged all the way down. Very complex thing, but it makes I think everybody have a little bit more robust ability to create a business around some of that stuff.
Yeah, if you're asking everyone's perspective, I'll say it sounds cool, but not for 2-1. I'd rather just have this like even with payments. I know a lot of people are really excited about payments, getting that all worked out. I'm on my side. I just want this stuff consistent with extractions. Man, I could get deployments would be so much easier for me. If I didn't have to worry about extractions or anything like that, I could just copy paste done. And not have to worry about exclusions. And if you're doing call failure handling as well, like life is easy. And I will take on any outside payment manual steps I need to do. Because it sounds like right now, the more you're taking on, the more you're going to take on. Like if the more complexity you add, the more complexity is going to be growing in the background too.
Yeah, 100%.
For your sake, I know you want it done. I'd say just keep it simple right now. Like your own words, kiss it.
Exactly. Kiss it, dude. It's just to build on what Jake is saying, I would much rather have like constant reliability than more bells and whistles. You know, if I can load something up and I'm like, I know without a doubt, as soon as I hit this button, it's going to at least work 99% of the time. For me, it's just like, you know, that for me, that is just so much more valuable. That's been one of my biggest hesitancies. And I've just kind of had a, not to gripe or anything, but I've had a few people just drop off because it's like, oh, you know what, it's just not working exactly as we need it. So we're going to try this other feature. We'll definitely come back, and it's been tough, you know.
Yeah, that's all that stuff is kind of like infrastructure was like a big thing, which is like why I'm redoing a lot of this, but it also like ties into the other stuff because it's like from an entrepreneurial perspective, it's great, but from a business owner perspective, if we're getting exposure to tens of thousands of sub accounts cost wise, but not generating anything from it, how long can we stay around for that? If we're basically just like taking on costs, not making any money. That's like DoorDash with no VC funding. And so it's like, that's why it's like not a huge priority, but it's like in the understanding of like, we need to have a proper model there. Again, like up to this point, it's always been like entrepreneurial, like product building, right? But at this point, it's like, we need to start thinking forward of like, if we're going to be here forever, how do we be here forever? And that's why that's kind of been a big thing. But no, a lot of that stuff is like, most of this has just been like ease of use and reliable of the way things are tied together. So it's like another thing we ran into is account management and things like that. That needs to be like linked exactly, so we don't have to worry about that. And then things like calling, like we have to be able to limit calls. A lot of the times while we get rate limited is there's no stopping some people to just make thousands of calls, and then there's thousands of calls going on. Those people aren't even paying for them. I'm paying for them. And so they shouldn't be able to do that. The people who are paying for the call should be able to do that. And that's why this has been a big thing, is like trying to understand it infrastructurally is like a lot of things, usually rate limiting and volume is what's killing right now. And it's because even though we have ways to track tangibly, we have no ways to stop somebody because we can't say you don't have a card on file. You can't make a call because all of the metrics hit. You have an assistant, the assistant's good. You have a number, the number's good. But we can't stop you from calling because it's, what are we going to do? Rebill you? And if we do, are we going to get disputed? Little things like that. So that's mostly what this is the aspect of like taking concepts like extractions, just making them dummy proof. Like you put it in there, it's like, it's going to extract, but also kind of setting up the infrastructure to be like, okay, most of the stuff from a deployment aspect, you don't really have to worry about either.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff as far as like external tool calls or API calls, like the manual API calls, I'm not exactly sure how that would be managed. But as far as concurrencies, we're already hitting that, right? That's already a forced limit, and that'll be paid by your direct client, whether that's us, the agency, or someone that signed up with you directly.
Something to the
Right.
effect of that.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes. But right now it's like wild, wild west. I just even have more server capacity now, so good luck trying to hit it. And we should be good. And that's why, like, even on this one, I'm just taking my time to kind of just watch and seeing what's happening. And then we're backtracking support a little bit just to see where most things come from so that we can make those easier. Yeah, I think it's just like things like extractions and the other thing that we're having a hard time kind of looking at objectively and say how do we make it better is like booking, right? Like booking is I personally have never had a failure in my booking, but some people have consistent problems and we need to figure out why. Is it their prompting? Is it their integration? Is it what is stuff like that? And so we're taking a look at some stuff like that to see like why are some people getting so consistent and why not? Because with something like AI, especially being super dynamic, it makes it tough to say like you can only do this and you can't do this, but how do we just cater to all use cases? So it's really been stuff like that.
Will we be now? This is. I was going to say something about demo accounts, but if payments are on the back hold, demo accounts be like, man, if we're just opening up a free account tier inside of Assistable, and then charging separately, like we don't have to worry about building a demo account for us. Like we can just build it out. It's automatically charged all the minutes directly to the agency, and then when we get a client on it, we just send them a Stripe or an invoice, however we're going to operate it separately. But as far as lost my train of thought. That happens from time to time. Does anyone else have a question? Like, anyone have a bot they want built? I'm pretty sure that that's what the call's for.
Yeah, I figured this one would probably be more like Q&A.
Q&A.
I duplicated the forever follow-up off of the newest build that you did, Jordan. And for some reason, like my context injection is not, it just repeats the last message that it sent every time. And I thought
What's your prompt there?
Let me.
Or can you share your screen, Trevor?
Can I? I don't know.
I think with Google Meets you can, yeah.
Where is share screen at?
On the bottom with the little up arrow, just like Apple.
Okay, present now.
Sweet.
All right, now how do I know which?
I definitely miss these meetings.
Oh, I do too. I absolutely.
Are you seeing my screen?
Yep.
Yep.
Loud and clear.
Right. Unique, engaging message, conversation, use company to create rapport. See what I have online.
And I did change yours slightly because it was sending the same message, thinking that putting in unique and engaging would have done something, but maybe I'm missing on my adjectives. I don't know.
That's pretty good. Very message.
Can you scroll down a little bit so we can see your triggers just to get a full scoop? Awesome. Well, that's maybe a little bit too much.
Oh, sorry.
Also, in this scenario, this workflow, is it mainly for voice or is it mainly for chat?
Chat.
I would probably, if it's outputting the same thing, because you gotta love AI because it's a creature of habit. Maybe give it some examples to pick from. Because
okay, and do that under the task.
Yeah, you can say something. You can say generate a message to follow up with the user, restart the conversation. I've included some examples for you to use, and then you can do hashtag examples. And then you can say pull from these examples. Especially if it's like getting into its habit of outputting the same thing. I seldom see it, but I do see it. But something like that kind of helps it get out of its loop, because AI tends to be a creature of habit. If it sees something a ton, it's like, okay, this is what I think I should be doing.
Gotcha. Okay. I'll try that and see what works. So, and hopefully it gets something unique in there. So just how does it matter how many examples I give it? I mean, or is it just going to shuffle through those examples? Is it not going to create a unique message? It's going to send exactly one of those?
You can like give it the instruction to say, I've included some examples, but use these as inspiration for a unique message to follow up with the user, something to the effect of that. I've done that with a couple of them too, because that's technically how knowledge base works. That's how knowledge base works with output, is like you say, here is your suggested answer, but use this conversationally to respond.
Okay, cool. I'll try that.
It's working for make.com. Yeah, the post call webhook should work for make.com. Should send wherever the webhook goes, the address that it goes to.
Guys, I felt like such a genius the other day. I connected Airtable to this, and I'm not an API genius or webhook genius. I was like, oh, and I was able to do it without any make or anything of that nature. So, but then I realized that they charge for every single user, like something like $35 or whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is not a sustainable thing. So,
no wonder it was so easy.
I know, right? I know.
If you got
perfect, like
Airtable,
literally the perfect solution, because you can like log the calls and then just blow up the prompt. It just opens up a nice pop-up and stuff like that, or side menu. So I tried Bubble a little bit, but then I'm like, yeah, no, I don't. It's not a big enough deal to
Jason,
spend the time learning that right now.
If you got Airtable working, AI table, it should be a 1-for-1 copy. I'm not exactly sure if they are on their API calls. Try AI table. It's an open source version of Airtable.
AI table.
Just get rid of that. Just get rid of the R.
Okay.
I'm
Wow,
not
if
sure
that's
it might
gonna
work.
Yeah, I'll certainly take a look, because like, I looked at different things. What I need is just a very simple, like same as Google Sheet, just with it'd be nice to have a little bit of a nicer interface, and then also the thing of a bit more security, and that I don't have to ask a client to log into that separate thing. Basically, I just want an API connection, right, or webhook connection without logging in.
For what reason? Data analysis?
So what I'm doing is I'm not even having customers need to go into Go High Level or Assistable. It just, they pop in their contact information into, currently the way I have it running is in Google Sheet, and that will shoot it over to Go High Level. And then once a call is done, the analysis of it comes back into another sheet. So basically it's like, hey, this call was answered, wasn't answered, or whatever it is, and it has a prompt and the different questions that I'm asking on the call. It has the analysis of each question displayed there. So the side menu that Airtable had is perfect, because it opens it up a little bit more in a nicer, readable fashion. So
it's like Notion. Notion's super good at that too.
Okay.
But
there again, they wouldn't allow for external webhook, editable webhooks, right, or APIs.
No, not outbound. Inbound, yes, but not outbound. That's tough.
Yeah. No, it's all. I'll check into AI table. You just got my hopes up. Now, don't make. I hope that you don't. They won't
I
be
made
broken,
no promises. In their marketing, they say a 1-for-1.
So the client puts it in, like puts the list in the Google Sheet, which brings it over into High Level to make the calls, and then after the calls, it comes back into the sheet with all the results and everything.
Yep, exactly.
I have a friend who has a pretty big call center, and he was like user number 2 or 3, and we had like kind of just reconnected to get some of his stuff done this past week. And he was showing me like all of his call center stuff is all in like a Google Drive. And I was like, I don't want to add it to this one, but it would be super interesting just for the idea of like keeping it. Would be like Google Drive integration. We can make a folder for call recordings and then a sheet for calls. So then we can just put it down on the sheet, when all the calls with all the dispositioning and everything, and then also have all the call recordings in a folder, because that's how they did it. And I was like, that is super smart and super easy, but that sounds like a whole thing to do. I don't know. Maybe one day. You're muted if you're saying something on there.
Me talking here for a long time. Kind of like you the other day, Jake, except you weren't muted. Oh my god!
I muted everyone else. I have.
He was talking about how weird it was that Jordan can hear us, and in the meantime, it was him not hearing us. Anyway, so like for what I'm doing, I'm not sure. Like I basically I don't want to add more to the 2.1 for sure. Like that's I don't think that's necessary. But what I was considering doing was with the custom objects on and go high level. But since their automation don't edit any of those, that's just not a feature yet. So I guess we'll just have to wait for that.
I'm very excited for it, but honestly, until they get the actions up and running for it, it's not useful. I mean, unless you had a full-time staff member for each location reviewing every call, in which case, why do you have a secretary or a digital bot?
Yeah. No, until then, I think a Google Sheet might just be the way to go. It doesn't feel as professional because it's not an all-in-one solution, where from the same dashboard they can just go in there and not have to log in separately. But it works. So.
Also, I wouldn't put anything in a Google Sheet with the method I showed, and I would not use Google Sheet for anything that's sensitive.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
Unless you had OAuth set up or something similar, not at all.
Yeah. Agreed. That's why one of the reasons I was looking for the Airtable solution. So I will check into AI table.
Well, if you're really starting to get into BuildShip, look up inside BuildShip using BuildShip and Firebase. That does its own authentication. The difficulty there is each location would have to be signed up as a separate user. So basically, there'd be a manual process getting set up right away for the first time, and you'd have to set up a potentially separate, depending on the key that they're using to authenticate, you'd send them into a different endpoint, like a different Google Sheet, right? Or a different
Firebase.
Different Firebase data store.
Supabase or whatever it be.
Yeah. So I mean, it depends on how much you want to get into it, because it sounds like we're going to have extractions here, we're going to have scraping here, and OAuth is going to be passed via voice. So if OAuth is being passed via voice, then you could have documents stored internally, I believe, inside of it's GHL, but it's Google API. And you should be able to just search that Google API for that doc. It's not here yet, so I can't test it, but yeah. Jordan, you think that'll work?
Yeah, that should.
I can't write and talk at the same time. That was impressive. I was expecting to stump you.
I'm trying to think.
Can anybody write and talk at the same time besides Jordan? Like, I cannot. I'm just like...
He can do build-outs.
I'll talk, and then as soon as I start typing, I realize like halfway through I'm typing, I'm like, oh wait, I stopped talking.
You're right. Stop talking or started writing the same thing that you're saying. Yeah, but Jordan does build out, so with 20 people talking, I still don't get that.
If it were me, I'd be politely nodding, but like ignoring in the background until I caught my breath and looked over. What happened?
It's like me speaking Spanish. Yeah.
Just as heads up, Justin and Brandon have their hands up.
What's going on, guys?
Yeah, quick question for you. On the 2.1 release, are we going to have the ability to automate the onboarding on resellers and also adding plans to that as well?
Yep. Yep. Automating it, yes. I mean, is it going to be like hands off completely? No. But I have an idea for that. But yes, rebuilding them, which is why like my brain is fried on like the tranches of billing that's happening here, because it's like I'll show you.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Jordan. This whole billing thing is all going to be resolved within 2-3 weeks after you do the transition. Is that part of the issue, or did I lose the plot?
Anything billing is like this one. Like there are major standpoints, which was like infrastructure, not only on our end, but like everywhere, making sure that's solidified, making sure we're where we need to be on there for reliability. Billing and rebilling is like a big thing. So like managing numbers, moving billing to a client. So if you don't want to pay for their numbers, you just send it to them, have them pay for it. Billing was a big thing. Deployment was a big thing. I'm trying to just like I said, been backtracking some of these support tickets and like where are the biggest bottlenecks, and those 3 or 4 things tend to kind of be the major things: is deployment, like accurately building what they wanted to build with no error. Like the custom tools was like they had the right idea, but like a parameter would have like capital letters or exclamation points in it, which is no bueno. And then like things like rebilling, being able to offset that cost, especially if we're going to be a little bit like intrinsically billing for things that actually come through the system, who's getting the bill and for how much is that bill going to be. So it's like the tranche or the complexity comes from like if you were just an agency rebilling to a sub account, so fucking easy. That's so easy. But some people want different billing for different plans for different sub accounts. That's still kind of easy. That's not easy, but it's still kind of easy. The other thing is reseller to the resold client who has different plans for their sub accounts who may or may not have billing that ties back to them. There's like a 5 or 6 tranche rebuild there. And so it's conceptually trying to understand that is hard enough, but building it out is twice as hard. But this is kind of what's going on there is like, so this is 2.1. And so products and then tables are divvied out by workspace tables and account tables. So, selling to the accounts that you have there and to workspaces. And it's just kind of basically the same thing, except for these are the actual like tabs that'll be open +1 or 2 when this comes in. And so this will kind of set this will set the tone for what they can and cannot see. This will kind of overwrite everything for those sub accounts who get that plan. The same thing for the workspace is whatever plan they're on is what they see and what they can get is how much they're getting billed, especially on voice. So this plan, 15 cents per minute, that's their invoice that'll be generated. And then it still kind of tranches down. So if you have a table here, this is a client table. But if it's a workspace table, new workspaces to resell will have that table visible. So when they sign up, they'll see that table and they have to, pay from that table. Once they do, they get their limits based on that table or whatever plan they subscribe to. That's put into their account. And then when they can go in here, they can't create stuff for like another workspace, but for their clients, they can. And so this has been a good visualization, at least on my part, to like make sense of this whole thing. That's kind of the idea anyways.
Question about favicons. Are favicons going to be staying the same?
They should dynamically change based on the logo, or they should. So I redid.
Mine hasn't. I'm wondering if I'm like not meeting a standard.
No, and it may be this. So like on the domains got redone too. And so even on this one that I'm in is hidden, but we have a little thing that's edit where you can edit like what's your, how this one comes up, or when I have a sub account pulled up, it says the agency's name and everything. We'll be able to change all the settings there. You'll be able to index to a certain page. So you'll be able to edit like actually DNS, like your domain stuff in this one, along with just generally getting it connected, which should help with all stuff like that.
Brandon Duncan, his hand's been up. And then after that, we have Cedric. Go ahead, Brandon.
Hey, Jordan. I had a quick question about the web search tool. Is there a way to like limit the search results when you're searching? Because I set it up to like query my website, but it searches like my website, Zillow. It searches like 20,000 websites, and then like after 2 searches, it hits like a rate limit, and then this chat stops working.
On
the custom search tool. Because what I was using it for was basically like search this property on my website by using site plus the address, and it'll do it like for a couple, but after that it just stops because it like reaches a limit and it says null. It'll start saying no, and the chat won't respond anymore.
On this tool right here.
Yeah.
A theoretical limit there shouldn't be, because this I think goes to Bing is where this ends up going, but I'll have to check to see, because I've used it in some, but I haven't used it where I was like recursively search something to find everything to see if there was like a limit of that. It was usually just like search this one thing, but I'll check and see. I'll check and see.
Hey, Brendan, do you have do you have a lot of back pages on your site that you're doing, or are you doing a full catch-all of every single page?
Well, it's what I was using it for searching just to cite the address. So basically, with my site, it indexes all of the IDX listings. So whenever I did the query, it'll pull the address and the link, like no issue. But like if I do it multiple times, that's when it hits like a limit and it won't stop. It'll stop. So what I was doing, I got some when Justin posted the Rapid API, which was pretty cool. I went there and they have one that's a web search tool as well too that I was trying to build out in BuildShip, just to use that. And that one actually you can limit the queries in which website. So you can say search just to give me only 2 queries back of this website for this address, and it lets you limit it so you're not hitting that limit that token or character count in the assistant.
Okay, roger that. Yeah, I have the search tool that I've been using for quite some time. It's actually pretty good. But in the prompting, I tell it what subpages just to limit itself to the search to, which does help. But I guess it's not related.
Yeah, and I did that too. I think what it does is if it can't find it in like the first few like searches, it just starts going everywhere. It's I guess since it is looking for a specific property, it'll start searching there, and then it'll like go from in like the notes when I look at the tool, it'll go from my website to Zillow to Realtor.com to any of the other real estate sites available if it can't find it initially.
Because you have it address specific then.
Yeah, I have it set for the address specific everything.
Yeah, you got to be really careful with that because it's going to be pulling a lot of data if you have it address specific. And then if it's a listing, you have to be careful as well too, because it's going to pull up all the previous sold lists and everything as well too. So it may give you some false positives or false information.
Yeah, that's what I was getting. So I've been testing it, trying to figure out a way to get around it, because it'll say like something's not listed when it is listed, or an old price and stuff. So I've just been testing and playing with it, but I was seeing if there was a way to limit the search queries on it to like only one website.
I think is it Michael Lee? I think he did a post on School, something about a Zillow poll. So
yeah, Justin put it up there. Justin linked it up with the Zillow one, and I was asking him about doing that, but just doing it from my website specifically. And so that way, if they're talking to my assistant, they can send the links there instead of sending them to Zillow from my website.
Okay.
That
sounds like you're on it. Yeah. Just on that token, I have the search tool, Jordan, but on voice, it just keeps going through this loop, like pulling up results. Just I'll be right back, and then like 2 seconds later, pulling up some results. I'll be right back. And then it keeps going through that loop until it correlates all the data. I have it in the prompting to just pause, do the search, and just kind of wait without doing any voice interjection. But just on voice, it does that. On text, it does send out 1 or 2 different messages, but I can't get around it. Any thoughts?
Yeah. If it's like you're doing a recursive tool call where it needs to call it multiple times. Yeah.
Just one time actually. It does one search, and then it finds all the data, and then it kind of gives a list of available properties to the user. But as it's going through, it's only 3 pages. It will, prompt the user that it's doing its job.
I have a setting for that that I was going to expose in this one, which like you can turn off them talking while they do something. That may be good for that. And also, do you have it calling directly to an endpoint, or is it go to BuildShip and then sent back?
No, I don't believe it goes to BuildShip. Let me just check and hear the endpoint.
Thing that I had worked for that similar situation is just put something like silent period, and until all of the information is returned, you're in a silent period. Once all the information is returned, then you can, begin speaking again, like something along the lines of that.
Has that worked for you, Alex?
It's hit or miss. So it's weird, but as it did more calls, it started to work better. But like it almost learned what I wanted it to do in a sense. At first, it was still kind of doing it, but now it's actually been getting a little bit better with just staying quiet and not being like, hey, let me gather that information kind of thing.
Alex, you're actually up next on the question list if you have it, and then after that we'll go over Cedric's question.
Yeah, I just wanted to know for the voice, Jordan, are you going to implement anything where we can have like subfolders within the voice and then within the prompt, just so it like speeds it up and it's not looking at the entire knowledge base, so we can be like, hey, look at for this, look at section 2 of the knowledge base. For this, look at section 3.
For knowledge base or prompting, because knowledge base should be, I mean, it's a vector search, so it shouldn't. Like, what do you mean?
Well, just like if I put like a ton of stuff in the knowledge base, right? Like just completely overload it, then it's gonna have to still go through, like pull from the entire knowledge base till it finds the correct thing that I want it to say, right? But if you just have it like specific folders where it's like, hey, if someone asks this, go into this part of the knowledge base because that's where the correct answer is.
It should theoretically work either way. Knowledge is it's such a fun thing to play with if you ever get the time, like how RAG actually works. It's such a fun thing to know, because it's one of the coolest things I think humans have invented in quite some time, like a 4-dimensional database. But even on like a wide array of, like, if you loaded one knowledge base with everything for every industry, then it would still only return what's relevant for like that specific person asked. It's super cool. But that's why RAG is so powerful. So you can dump all that in there.
Yeah, but I just meant for like, do you think it'll be like, let's say we put every single industry's knowledge into one, like wouldn't there be quite a bit of a delay if it's like actually going into the knowledge on voice to try to grab that information?
Yeah, 100%, which is why I divvied out like the knowledge bases rather than just like a knowledge tab for the specific assistant. But it's like, as far as like having a wide like range of data inside the knowledge base, it should be fine, as long as you kind of like tie them up a little bit, like where, I guess you really don't even have to do it within like a department type thing. Like I divvy mine out by support and sales, which theoretically they can still be under one, but if you're doing multiple different businesses or multiple different offers, you can divvy them up that way and then give the assistant access to the specific one that is most relevant to it. You can kind of customize them in that way.
Okay, but there's no way of like actually like having like the folders within the knowledge base and then just being like, hey, if they're looking for pricing on roofing, let's say for example, go into roofing pricing in the knowledge base and just have that like in the prompt so it knows exactly where to grab it so it's quick.
Knowledge is an async process, meaning the assistant has no clue what's going on. It's just kind of fed the context. And so like when a generation happens, like say voice or just chat is probably an easier example. So when a message comes in, it splits and says, let me go get the knowledge and then let me, do everything else I need to do. And then the answer that comes from the knowledge base is put back into the prompt. It's injected and say, here's your regular prompt. But because I had knowledge in there, here's the answer that I've had before that you should answer like. So it's kind of an async thing that it's not fully aware of.
Right. No, I was just thinking about like previous calls and stuff like that, rather than having to like, have like notes and stuff like that on the client's file. Like you could just have the call recording in the knowledge base where it can go grab that previous interaction. But if it knows where to grab it, it would probably increase the time. So it's not like, hey, one sec, let me check on our previous call. And then it just, get some hold music going for a bit while it's grabbing it.
Yeah. On this one, like for contextual calling, we'll instead of like, so we'll have like the call center tab, which shows all calls, but with the transcript object itself. So like how you kind of see it in here today, how this breaks down. by agent user type thing, these will be turned into messages. And so these messages will show up there. And then when a call comes in outbound, general summary, a little bit more robust than this will be fed back to the call. And then we maybe even inject this, but this will cause a lot of delay. But we may just inject summaries of the previous conversations that have been held in both voice and chat, and that's fed to it for both inbound and outbound calling. So it at least has some understanding of past interaction.
One last question, sorry. Just for the summary, is there any way of like telling it not to put something in the summary?
In here?
Yeah, because like what's happening is like what I'm doing is we have just an appointment set up, but then also we have home energy assessment. But now since it's booked in home energy assessment, in the summary, even if it books an appointment, it's just putting home energy assessment. When people call back in and I have the summary fed to my receptionist bot that answers the phone calls, it's saying, oh yeah, you're booked in for a home energy assessment. They should be there at, and they check the appointment time. They'll be at your house at this time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I didn't even put in the prompt, do not use the term home energy assessment. And it's still just throwing it at the summary, no matter what. So like, how is...
I'll take a look at that. It's like a post-process thing. I can take a look.
Does he need to send you the location ID and bot ID?
Yeah, if you can email that to me, I'll take a look at the specific ones.
Okay.
Also, Cedric asked about post-call webhooks to external sources, specifically make.com. I already responded to him in school, but I mentioned yes, it can, because it's just sending a payload. And he said that he was getting an error, and I didn't get to see a loom of it, but he did send a screenshot of what was it, Cedric? Do you remember the error code? Actually, I have it up right here. It was no, lost it. It's gone. Cedric, are you still on the call? All right, I guess. Jordan, do you have anything to speak on that?
No, I mean, it theoretically should. It's just a payload. It's kind of like what you said. It's just a payload, maybe headers or something, but I don't think that would throw a code.
Yeah, because we can do it to build, we can do it to N8N, we can do it to everything else. There's no reason why it won't work with N8N unless N8N is expecting something.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Unless they, like some platforms, I'm not familiar with a ton of them, but some platforms, like once the webhook is initialized, it almost like hard sets all the variables. So I'm trying to think of a way to put this. It hard sets all the variables. So if there's a variable missing, for example, like this one didn't book an appointment, and appointment doesn't equal true because appointment wasn't booked, because it didn't have the appointment equals true in it, it left it out because that wasn't a thing that happened, then it could be like, oh, I need all of that. And that's not, yeah. So I was thinking maybe that's it, but I don't think so.
It looks like he just responded to me in chat. He said when he hit the little arrow buttons to do the test, to do the initializing, he got error initializing request accepted. Are you familiar with that?
On which end, our end or Make?
This is an error showing up inside of Assistable when he hits the arrow to initialize it.
I'll have to test with Make, because what we look for is returned an error equals true. And if it doesn't return true, then it's initialized. But if it returns true, then there was an error initializing.
Okay, so maybe Make is responding something else.
Some people do things weird. Like there's this one platform called Gina. When you call to their API, they return the return in an error. Like all their returns are an error. And so I'll have to look and test myself to see if that may be a similar issue, because then we'll just use another parameter if that's a thing.
Okay. Let's see, someone else got their hand up. Yeah, Bilal has had his hand up a while, and then Ralph made a request.
What's going on?
Hey, I joined the call late, so I'm not sure if this has been answered, but on the performance tab, will we be getting that back to track how many minutes have been used, say from previous months?
Yep. There's going to be like a call center tab, and I guess you can call it analytics or performance tab, and where you'll be able to kind of take not necessarily a snapshot, but it'll just almost be like a little data thing that you can parse. It's like messages, calls, whatever over this time frame and this much data, something like that, so that you can show clients or just kind of look back at all of it, confirm it.
Cool. Thank you.
Jordan, are you recording this video to be posted inside of school?
No, I because I use Google Meet, and I don't think
Okay.
this one. Yeah, it sucks, but that's okay.
All right. Next up, we had Ralph ask a question, but his hand's not up. So let's see. Ralph did mention. Can you review what's in the KB? Oh, there we go, Ralph. Go ahead.
I hate tying up their time, but just wanted to see if there's a way to edit knowledge base, or at least view it and replace some of the info. What happens is that we get a trickle of information here and there from different sources, and then, of course, they ask to pull this and replace it with that. And once it's dumped into that knowledge base bucket, can we do that, or can we?
Yeah, I think it's not that I think what we'll do, but what'll probably end up happening for knowledge is like, you can like look at the metadata now, but it's not like, editable. And what we'll probably do is if there's something in there, and we'll probably break it down in a more meaningful way that like is easier to understand besides like this and all this fun stuff, is like you'll be able to see these parameters here. And it's like, well, that's not right. I can take that out. And then that'll get rid of the vector store. And then on the initialization of like adding data, so like a site scrape and everything, we're going to like show you the sites that we scrape because we're going to do the XML sitemap. We're going to show you the sites first, and then it's like, okay, which one do you want? Which one do you not want? And then you can review that information before it actually goes into the knowledge base in case there's this old page you forgot about that has old pricing or something like that on it. That's been something that's come up. And so we'll have a little bit more confirmation before things are created. And on the other end, the same thing of like confirmation of things deleted, but we'll also have like a restore or something like that. So if you have something that the metadata isn't perfect, you want to do something else, then you can just change it and then restore, which it'll, from a system standpoint, delete what's in there and then just restore it with what's new.
Oh, crud.
Would be awesome. So that was my next question. Sitemap. Also, I know you got enough on your board, but some kind of diagnostic chatbot to quiz exactly what's in that snippet of the knowledge base, if it's a large one. Something along those lines where you can direct it to only extract information from that source period, just to make sure that it's accurate.
I thought you would do this. So, with redoing the assistant portal for, more testing and diagnostic things, it's like the knowledge was one of those things too. So we're going to run a purely embedded model. So like in the knowledge base, you'll have like test knowledge base or something like that. Something to the effect of that. I don't know if that's a good name for it, but it's basically just going to run an embedded model against your knowledge. And so it'll just, you ask it a question, it's going to spit out what theoretically the embedding would, not necessarily a chatbot, but you will just get answers from your knowledge base. And so you can kind of test to see if those are correct answers. And then if they're not, you can go back and edit it, but it's a way to kind of preemptively test knowledge before it goes into, into prod.
Beautiful. Perfect. Thanks.
Yeah, I thought that'd be pretty fun. That also allows for the idea of us in the future deploying just purely embedded models, but I don't think that's in demand right now.
Dylan, I read Trinitas and it took me a second. Dylan asked if there was a build out yesterday. I was unaware of it. Was there one?
No, there was this little like this right here. That was about it. And then this one's the one that I'll post later today.
All right. And then Trevor, you're up.
All right. So I amended the prompt in the throw. So I'm just going to share again just to make sure I'm on the right page here. And then the other thing that I wanted to ask, is there a place that I can test this? Like, my regular prompt, I just jump into OpenAI's playground and put that in there and, go after it. But on these context injections, it's adding this to the prompt, correct? So I'm not sure if I could test that in the OpenAI playground because it wouldn't have the other portion of the prompt.
I think we have to remember what parts we keep and what parts we get rid of. I think I get rid of the task space. I don't think I get rid. Actually, I'll have to check on that.
But I just want to make sure my structure is right here. So the task, generate a unique and engaging message to follow up with the user to restart the conversation, use comedy to create rapport. I've included 3 example replies for inspiration. And then I just put the example replies down below. Is that adequate? I mean, I'm going to give it a go no matter what, but
Yeah. I think the only thing, like, and this is just such a small thing, is I would do like in examples, just for the AI to understand better. I would do an examples, and then I would bullet point each example, even though it's example 1, and then example, and then bullet point 2. Example
all
2.
right. And then as far as bullet point, I would just basically go below here and just put that in there.
Yep.
All right, and then do I need these little parentheses or quotes? I mean, do I need that in there?
No, and in fact, if I were like doing this myself, I probably wouldn't put them in there, because as you can even see from something like this, the AI is really good at, like, it tries to mimic. It is what it basically does. It tries to mimic past conversation and everything. So I haven't personally seen this happen, but I've seen this happen by a human, is that if you have quotes in there, then it'll be like, okay, well, in his example, he had quotes in his, so I'm going to put quotes on mine. And then you get quote, hey,
gotcha.
it's never fun.
Do I need to put anything in front of examples, like a hashtag or anything like that, or that should be sufficient?
I would do 2 hashtags just to denote that this is a new space and not a task.
All right, cool. All right, yeah. So I guess I'll just give that a go and run myself through. I might even create just a simpler workflow with this context injection, so I don't have to keep pushing myself through.
Yeah. Yep. Easy enough. And that should at least do it. That should give it a little bit more inspiration to be unique. It's seldom that this happens, but also I would say make your temperature or adjust your temperature, but I think the example thing should be fine.
Yeah, because I mean, this is what was happening, and what's funny is that it was going in there, and it would only pick one day, even though it was 20% we're supposed to go through to the one day. Every time this guy hit it, it was one day. So
I noticed that on some of mine in high level too. I don't know, and maybe it's just like, maybe we should go buy a lottery ticket, because I noticed some of mine were doing that too, where it would hit like 2 days, like consistently, like very consistent.
I'm wondering if I should almost add like a unique tag for each one that it goes through. That way, if it senses that tag, it won't go down that path the next time, and then it removes the tag. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of a way to. It should work the way that it is. I mean, really. I mean, it would be absolutely statistically amazing if every 20% this guy ended up in the same slot. But what can you do?
Yeah, I thought that was literally my same thing. As I had one that did that, and I was like, well, fuck, I guess I should probably go buy a lottery ticket or something, because the distribution is 20% all the way across, and the fact that he hit 1 day and 2 day, consistently was kind of insane. But I think that should be fine. I also added this, and so I've been kind of redoing this for like an official snapshot. A lot of mine got followed up with a ton, which was great, because it actually reactivated some of them, but also it would piss off more people too. And so I just put a stop for 10 follow-ups on all of my stuff.
How do you do that?
So what I did was I added on the have they booked, if else right here. After that, I said, has follow-up been more than 10? And if yes, take it out. But if they don't have a follow-up metric that's over 10, then it goes through the traditional thing of comparing the dates and adding context. But right before it restarts, I do a math operation for a follow-up counter that says follow-up counter equals, add 1 to the follow-up counter, so I know how many times they've been hit.
Okay. All right, cool. All right, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
We had Alex Deschamps, but his hand just went down. Was that accidental?
Yeah, my bad.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say really quickly, Jordan, are you implementing 11 Labs into the 2.1?
Like an integration or 11 Labs in general?
It's like the integration so you can choose more voices.
No, but I am going to put voice cloning in there.
Okay. Any way that you could add this one, I just put into the chat. I don't know if you're able to just add voices, but just so that we have like a Canadian style voice in there.
Yeah, can you email that to me?
Email too? Yeah.
Yeah, so I can have it. Yeah, I'll see what I can do.
All right, Duek, said it right.
Yeah, you did say it right. Yeah, yeah. You might not want to say it. There's some people say it, but maybe you'd love to. Maybe you'd love to. Depends how much you like me. Anyway, so my question here now is more goal high level oriented. So anybody, or if it's more important things, like just let me know. But basically, if I have a custom value with a ton of almost like a report in there, but I want to send it via text message. It's it's basically a reply to multiple questions. And why I have it in one is because I don't want to have 20 GPTs running. Is there a way to either break it up in build chip or something like that, or in goal high level you're aware of without using separate GPTs to do that per question? Just send a text message.
What's just sending a text message? What's the use case?
So it's basically, I have multiple questions answered, and then a GPT comes up with the answers for it because it's multiple pieces coming together, and we want to analyze the response before sending it out. And then once the counselor, coach, whatever it were to be, has reviewed it, then they just send it off by clicking like a send now button or whatever.
So are you saying you want to send that after GPT reviews it, send a modified response and then save values, or send a response?
So here's what I was going to do with. Here's what I was going to do. I was going to gather all the information. Basically, we could do that from a form, or we can do that, through a conversation. Put that into one custom value to have a GPT analyze that and come up with responses. However, due to the delicacy of the conversation, whatever, we want to make sure somebody reviews it before it goes out. So now the GPT has come up with a potential response. Now the person can come and make the changes in the custom field there, and then hit a button, like a radial button, which I put up with the workflows, to just send that via text message.
So similar to like how conversation AI works in GHL, where they get the message before they send it. So they're